Have a wonderful day. Enjoy the story. Ethan's Tesla glided silently through the gates of his Atlanta mansion, the late afternoon sun casting long shadows across the manicured lawn. His shoulders, tense from a week of high-stakes meetings in New York, ached beneath his custom-tailored Tom Ford suit. The house loomed ahead, a modernist masterpiece of glass and steel that had graced the covers of architectural magazines, yet had felt more like a mausoleum than a home since Sophia's passing 2 years ago. He expected the usual silence that greeted him on his returns, the hollow echo of his footsteps, the mechanical hum of the climate control system, and the distant sound of Miss S. Larson, their previous housekeeper, quietly dusting some forgotten corner. But today was different. The sound hit him first, a high-pitched squeal of delight that made him freeze mid-step. Laughter. His daughter's laughter. A sound so rare these days that he had almost forgotten its melody. For a moment, he thought he was hallucinating from jet lag. Then he saw them by the infinity pool that overlooked the Atlanta skyline. A scene unfolded that seemed to belong in someone else's life. Lily, his 6-year-old daughter, was splashing in the shallow end, her dark curls bouncing with each movement. But it wasn't his daughter's presence that stopped him in his tracks. It was the woman with her. Naomi Brooks, the new housekeeper he'd hired through his executive staffing agency, was sitting at the pool's edge, her feet dangling in the water. She wore a simple sundress, its yellow fabric bright against her dark skin, and her natural hair was pulled back in a practical bun. What struck him wasn't her appearance, though. It was the way she interacted with Lily. "Miss Naomi, make it higher," Lily called out, watching in delight as Naomi created waves with her feet, sending ripples of water toward the little girl. "Ready for the tsunami?" Naomi's voice carried across the water, warm and playful. "Here it comes." Lily's shriek of joy echoed off the glass walls of the house as a small wave of water splashed over her. The sound pierced something in Ethan's chest, a tight knot he hadn't even realized was there. "Daddy!" Lily spotted him first, her face lighting up in a way he hadn't seen in months. She scrambled out of the pool, leaving wet footprints on the limestone tiles as she ran toward him. Ethan instinctively stepped back, not wanting his suit to get wet, then stopped himself. When was the last time his daughter had run to him like this? He knelt down, opening his arms. Designer suit be damned. Lily crashed into him, soaking his jacket, but he found himself not caring. She smelled of chlorine and the strawberry shampoo Sophia used to buy her, and suddenly his throat felt tight. "Mr. Bennett," Naomi had stood up quickly, looking mortified. "I'm so sorry. I didn't expect you back until evening. I should have had Lily dressed and ready for dinner." She grabbed a towel, hurrying over. "Lily, honey, you're getting your father all wet." Ethan should have been annoyed. The house rules were clear. No swimming without scheduled supervision. No outdoor activities after 4:00 p.m. No disruption to Lily's carefully planned routine. Everything in his life ran according to schedule, from his investment meetings to his daughter's piano lessons. But watching Lily's face glow with happiness, seeing the easy way she turned to include Naomi in their conversation, he found himself saying something unexpected. "It's fine, Miss Brooks. Actually, it's nice." Naomi's relief was visible, but there was something else in her expression, a flash of guilt, perhaps. She busied herself wrapping Lily in a fluffy white towel, her movements gentle and practiced. "We made cookies too, Daddy," Lily announced, bouncing on her toes. "Real ones, from scratch. Miss Naomi taught me how to measure the flour and everything. Can we show him?" The last question was directed at Naomi, and Ethan noticed how naturally his daughter looked to the housekeeper for approval. "They should be cool enough now," Naomi said, then quickly added, "unless you'd prefer to stick to Lily's usual dinner schedule, Mr. Bennett." Ethan looked at his daughter's hopeful face, then at Naomi. The setting sun caught her profile, highlighting the elegant line of her neck, the warmth in her brown eyes. She was nothing like Sophia, with her coolly efficient manner and strict adherence to schedules. Naomi radiated something else entirely, a natural warmth that seemed to have thawed something in his frozen household. "I think we can make an exception today," he found himself saying. "Lead the way, Lily." As they walked toward the house, Ethan noticed small changes everywhere. A vase of fresh wildflowers on the patio table, the subtle scent of vanilla and spices wafting from the kitchen, colored drawings taped to the windows, something Sophia would never have allowed. In the kitchen, Lily proudly showed him a plate of chocolate chip cookies, slightly misshapen, but smelling divine. As she chatted excitedly about her baking adventure, Ethan watched Naomi move around his kitchen with easy familiarity. She had changed something fundamental in this space, transformed it from a showcase of expensive appliances into something that actually felt like a home. "Would you like coffee with your cookie, Mr. Bennett?" Naomi asked, already reaching for his preferred cup, dark blue ceramic, a gift from Lily last Christmas that he rarely used. "Ethan," he said suddenly, surprising himself. "You can call me Ethan." Their eyes met over Lily's head, and for a moment, something electric passed between them. Naomi's smile faltered slightly, a shadow passing over her features so quickly he might have imagined it. "Ethan," she repeated softly, then turned away to prepare the coffee. He watched her, noting the grace in her movements, the way she seemed to anticipate needs before they were expressed. There was a story there, he realized, behind her perfect references and impressive qualifications, something deeper that explained how she had managed to bring laughter back into his house in just a few short weeks. As the evening sun painted his kitchen in shades of gold, Ethan felt something shift inside him. The careful walls he'd built around his life after Sophia's death didn't seem quite so necessary anymore, and that, he realized with a mix of excitement and terror, might be the most dangerous thing of all. Looking at Naomi as she helped Lily arrange cookies on a plate, her head bent close to his daughter as they discussed the perfect presentation, Ethan knew he should maintain his distance. She was an employee after all, and he had learned the hard way that mixing business with pleasure only led to complications. But watching them together, hearing his daughter's laughter ring through the house that had been silent for so long, he wondered if some complications might be worth the risk. What he couldn't know, was that Naomi was harboring a secret that would test that newfound openness in ways he couldn't imagine. As she turned to hand him his coffee, their fingers brushing briefly, she pushed down the guilt that threatened to overwhelm her. For now, she told herself, this moment was enough. The rest would have to wait. Morning light streamed through the floor-to-ceiling windows of the Bennett mansion's kitchen, casting prism-like patterns across the marble countertops. Naomi stood at the island, methodically chopping fresh strawberries for Lily's breakfast, trying to ignore the weight of her phone in her pocket. 3 missed calls from her mother this morning. She knew what they meant. Miles had asked for her again. The sound of expensive leather shoes against hardwood pulled her from her thoughts. Ethan entered the kitchen, his presence immediately filling the space. Today's suit was charcoal gray, perfectly tailored to his athletic frame. He carried himself with the confidence of a man accustomed to commanding rooms full of investors, but there was something different about him this morning, a softness around his eyes that hadn't been there before. "Good morning, Mr. Ethan," Naomi corrected herself, still adjusting to his request for informality. "Coffee's ready. I noticed you prefer it stronger on Wednesday mornings." He paused in the act of reaching for his cup. "You noticed that?" "I noticed things," she said simply, turning back to the strawberries. It was easier than meeting his gaze, easier than acknowledging how much she'd come to observe about him in the past weeks. The way he always loosened his tie 2 notches when reading bedtime stories to Lily, how he unconsciously touched his wedding ring when stressed, the slight furrow in his brow when he was trying not to smile. "Daddy!" Lily's voice rang out as she bounded into the kitchen, already dressed in her private school uniform. "Miss Naomi's teaching me French today." Ethan raised an eyebrow, looking between them. "French?" "Just breakfast-related words," Naomi explained, sliding a plate of heart-shaped French toast toward Lily. "I thought it might make mornings more interesting. Plus, your daughter's quite the linguist." "Les phrases, s'il vous plaît," Lily declared proudly, pointing at the strawberries. A smile tugged at Ethan's lips, one of those rare, genuine ones that transformed his whole face. "Sophia would have approved," he said softly, then seemed to catch himself. The mention of his late wife hung in the air for a moment, heavy with unspoken grief. Naomi busied herself with wiping down the counter, giving him space to collect himself. She'd learned that too, when to push and when to retreat. It was a dance she was becoming increasingly familiar with, this careful navigation of the Bennett family's healing process. "Miss Naomi makes everything fun," Lily continued, oblivious to the emotional undertow in the room. "Yesterday, she showed me how to make paper cranes. Did you know if you make 1,000 of them, you get to make a wish? That's quite a project," Ethan said, checking his watch. "Though perhaps we should save the origami lessons for after school hours." "Actually," Naomi interjected, then hesitated. She shouldn't overstep, but I thought it might help with her math. Origami involves a lot of patterns and spatial reasoning. We've been counting by tens as we make them. Ethan studied her for a long moment, and Naomi felt the familiar flutter of anxiety. She was just the housekeeper. After all, who was she to suggest educational strategies? But then, he nodded. Lily's last math test did show improvement. He turned to his daughter. "How many cranes have you made so far?" 30, Lily beamed. "Miss Naomi says that's 3 sets of 10. We're keeping them in my special box." The corner of Ethan's mouth twitched. "The one your mother gave you?" Lily nodded solemnly. "Miss Naomi says it's good to keep special things from Mommy close, but also make new special things too." Naomi held her breath, wondering if she'd overstepped again. She hadn't meant to intrude on their memories of Sophia, but Lily had been so hesitant to use the beautiful lacquered box, treating it like a shrine rather than the treasure chest it was meant to be. Ethan's expression was unreadable for a moment. Then he looked at Naomi, something soft and vulnerable in his gaze. "Thank you," he said quietly. The weight of his gratitude made her chest tight. If only he knew the truth about Miles, about why she understood so deeply the need to balance memory with moving forward. Her phone felt heavier in her pocket. "The car will be here in 10 minutes, sweetheart," Ethan said to Lily. "Better finish those strawberries." As Lily ate, Ethan lingered in the kitchen longer than usual, sipping his coffee and watching them interact. Naomi could feel his eyes on her as she helped Lily practice more French words, as she packed a small note in her lunchbox, as she straightened the little girl's collar with practiced ease. "You're good with her," he said finally, his voice low enough that Lily couldn't hear. "She makes it easy," Naomi replied, though her heart clenched at the words. Was she this gentle with Miles when he was younger? The memories were starting to blur around the edges, and that terrified her more than anything. "Nothing about parenting is easy," Ethan said, a note of something like kinship in his voice. "I should know." The moment stretched between them, charged with understanding, and something else, something neither of them was ready to name. Naomi broke it first, moving to clear Lily's plate. "Your schedule shows a dinner meeting tonight," she said, slipping back into professional mode. "Should I plan to keep Lily occupied until 8? "Actually, I was thinking of canceling." Ethan set down his coffee cup. "The Japanese investors can wait. It's been a while since I had dinner with my daughter. Can Miss Naomi eat with us?" Lily piped up immediately. Naomi started to decline dinner meant family time, and she wasn't family, no matter how domestic these moments felt, but Ethan spoke before she could. "You're welcome to join us," he said, his tone casual but his eyes intent on her face. "If you don't have other plans like calling her mother back, like trying to explain to a 2-year-old over the phone why Mommy couldn't tuck him in at night, like crying herself to sleep clutching a tiny blue blanket that still smelled faintly of baby powder." "That's very kind," she managed, "but I should probably, please." Lily's eyes were wide and hopeful. "You can teach Daddy French too." Looking at them, the successful businessman and his precious daughter, both watching her with such open invitation, Naomi felt her resolve crumbling. One evening of pretending to be part of their world couldn't hurt, could it? Just a few hours of letting herself believe that this could be her life, that she deserved this kind of happiness. "D'accord," she said softly, and Lily clapped in delight. Ethan's smile was warm enough to melt the last of her defenses. "I look forward to it." As they left for the day, Lily chattering about showing her paper cranes to her friends, Ethan stealing one last glance at Naomi over his shoulder, she allowed herself a moment of pure, uncomplicated joy. Then her phone buzzed again, and reality came rushing back. In the empty kitchen, surrounded by evidence of the life she was pretending to be part of, Naomi finally let herself cry just a few tears, quickly wiped away as she reached for her phone. She had a job to do, after all, and if that job meant creating happiness for someone else's child, while her own grew up without her, well, that was the price she had to pay. What she didn't see was Ethan, who had returned for his forgotten briefcase, standing frozen in the doorway. He watched her brush away tears with shaking hands, saw the way she squared her shoulders and lifted her chin, putting her mask back in place, and for the first time, he wondered if perhaps he wasn't the only one in this house carrying a heavy secret. The dinner had gone perfectly, too perfectly. As Naomi loaded the dishwasher in the Bennett mansion's kitchen, she couldn't shake the feeling that she was playing with fire. The evening replayed in her mind, Lily's delighted giggles as they all attempted French pronunciation, Ethan's surprised appreciation of her homemade chicken pot pie, the way his hand had briefly touched hers as she passed him the salt. "You don't have to do that," Ethan's voice startled her from her thoughts. He stood in the doorway, jacket off, sleeves rolled up to reveal strong forearms. "You're our guest tonight, remember?" "Force of habit," Naomi replied, closing the dishwasher. The kitchen was dark, except for the under-cabinet lighting, casting everything in a warm, intimate glow. Besides, Lily's finally asleep. "I think all that French wore her out. I haven't seen her that excited about learning since—" He trailed off, and Naomi knew he was thinking of Sophia again. "You have a gift with her." The praise, though genuine, felt like a knife in her heart. "I just understand children," she said, softly, thinking of Miles. Tonight's dinner had been a bittersweet reminder of everything she was missing with her own son. Thunder rumbled outside, and rain began pattering against the windows. Ethan moved to the kitchen island, opening a bottle of red wine. "Stay for a glass," he offered. "The storm's getting worse, and I'd appreciate the company." Everything in Naomi screamed that this was dangerous: the dim lighting, the wine, the intimate setting, but something in his expression made her nod. Just one glass. He poured 2 generous measures of what she was sure was an obscenely expensive vintage. Their fingers brushed as he handed her a glass, and that same electric current from earlier shot through her. "To new traditions," he said, raising his glass. "New traditions," she echoed, taking a sip. The wine was rich and complex, like everything else in Ethan's world. "You know," he said, studying his glass, "I've been meaning to ask you something." Naomi's heart skipped. "Oh, where did you learn to cook like this?" "Your references mentioned culinary training, but this is different. This feels like—" He gestured to the kitchen where traces of their dinner still lingered like home. "My grandmother," she answered truthfully. This, at least, was a safe topic. "She raised me and my siblings after our parents—" She stopped, realizing she was straying into personal territory. "After?" Ethan prompted gently. "Car accident," she said simply. "I was 8. My grandmother stepped in, kept us all together. She worked 3 jobs, but she always made time to cook for us. Said food was love made visible." Ethan's expression softened. "She sounds remarkable." She was. Naomi took another sip of wine, letting the warmth spread through her. "She taught me that family isn't about perfect circumstances. It's about making something beautiful out of what you have." The words hung between them, heavy with meaning. Ethan set his glass down, taking a step closer. "Is that what you're doing here? Making something beautiful?" The question caught her off guard. "I'm just doing my job," she said, but they both knew it was more than that. "Are you?" His voice was low, intimate. "Because what I see is someone bringing life back into this house. Someone teaching my daughter that it's okay to laugh again, to create new memories without betraying the old ones." Naomi's hands trembled slightly. She set her wine glass down before she could drop it. "Mr. Bennett, Ethan," he corrected softly. "Ethan," she amended. "I think you're giving me too much credit, and I think you're not giving yourself enough." Another crack of thunder, closer now. The lights flickered once, twice, then plunged them into darkness. Naomi gasped, instinctively reaching out. Her hand found his chest, solid and warm through his dress shirt. "Stay still," he murmured. The backup generator should kick in. But in those moments of darkness, something shifted. She was acutely aware of his proximity, of his breath ghosting across her face, of his hand coming up to steady her waist. The air between them crackled with possibility. The emergency lights hummed to life, bathing them in a soft blue glow. Neither of them moved. "Naomi," he breathed, and the way he said her name made her knees weak. His hand on her waist tightened slightly. "We can't," she whispered, even as she tilted her face up to his. Why not? 1,000 reasons tumbled through her mind. Because he was her employer. Because their worlds were too different. Because she was lying to him about something fundamental. Because Miles, her phone, buzzed in her pocket, shattering the moment. Her mother's name flashed on the screen. Reality crashed back like a bucket of ice water. Naomi stepped back, breaking contact. "I should check on Lily," she said quickly. Make sure the storm didn't wake her. Ethan didn't try to stop her, but she felt his eyes on her as she fled the kitchen. In the hallway, she leaned against the wall, heart pounding. Her phone buzzed again, insistently. With trembling fingers, she answered. "Mom? Naomi, baby." Her mother's voice was tight with concern. "Miles is running a fever. The doctor says it's just an ear infection, but he's been crying for you all night." The world tilted on its axis. In the kitchen, she could hear Ethan moving around. probably cleaning up their wine glasses. In her pocket was her last paycheck, enough to cover Miles's medicine, but not much else. And between these two realities, she stood frozen. "I'll send money for the prescription," she managed. Tell him Mommy loves him. Baby, he needs more than money. He needs." "I have to go." Naomi cut her off, tears threatening. "I'll call tomorrow." She ended the call just as Ethan appeared in the hallway. "Lily's still asleep," he said, then noticed her expression. "Naomi, what's wrong?" "Nothing," she said quickly, pasting on a smile. "Just checking messages. I should probably head to my quarters before the storm gets worse." He looked like he wanted to say more, to return to that charged moment in the kitchen, but something in her posture must have warned him off. "Of course. Thank you for dinner, and for everything else." Naomi nodded, not trusting herself to speak. She turned and walked away, each step an exercise in self-control. Behind her, she heard him sigh, a sound so full of longing, it made her heart ache. In her small apartment above the garage, Naomi curled up on her bed, listening to the storm rage outside. She pulled out her phone, opening the photo gallery. Miles's face smiled up at her chubby cheeks and bright eyes so full of trust. "I'm doing this for you," she whispered to the photo. "Everything is for you." But as thunder rolled overhead and rain lashed against her windows, she wondered how much longer she could keep her two worlds from colliding. In the main house, she could see lights still on in Ethan's study. The distance between them felt both infinite and paper-thin. Something had to give. She just prayed she would be strong enough when it did. 3 days after the storm, life in the Bennett mansion had settled back into its routine, but something fundamental had shifted. Ethan found himself lingering over breakfast, making excuses to work from home, his eyes constantly drawn to Naomi as she moved through the house. She, in turn, seemed to be avoiding being alone with him, always keeping Lily between them like a shield. That morning, however, everything changed. "Daddy, can Miss Naomi come to my career day?" Lily asked over breakfast, her voice hopeful. "Everyone's supposed to bring someone they want to be like when they grow up." Ethan lowered his coffee cup slowly, watching Naomi freeze in the act of wiping down the counter. "What about Daddy?" he asked carefully. "I thought you wanted to be a businesswoman like me." Lily shook her head, dark curls bouncing. "I want to be like Miss Naomi. She makes people happy, and she knows how to fix everything, and she makes the best cookies, and—" "Lily," Naomi interrupted gently, her voice strained. "I'm sure your father would be much better for a career day. He's very successful, and—" "But I want you." Lily's lower lip trembled. "You promised to always be here, and career day is important." The silence that followed was deafening. Ethan watched as all color drained from Naomi's face. "Sweetheart," she said finally, "I never meant to, I shouldn't have." "You did promise," Lily insisted. "When I was scared during the thunderstorm, you said you'd always be here to protect me." "You pinky swore." Ethan saw something break in Naomi's expression. Without warning, she turned and fled the kitchen, leaving them both staring after her. "Did I do something wrong?" Lily's voice was small. "No, princess." Ethan stood, straightening his tie. "Stay here and finish your breakfast. I'll talk to Miss Naomi." He found her in the garden, gripping the edge of the stone fountain, her shoulders shaking. The morning sun caught the tears on her cheeks, making them glitter like diamonds. "Naomi, I'm so sorry, Mr. Bennett," she said without turning. "I know I overstepped, making promises to Lily. It was unprofessional. I'll pack my things." "Stop." His voice was firm but gentle. "Look at me." She turned slowly, and the pain in her eyes took his breath away. She looked haunted. "You've brought more life and joy into this house in a few months than we've had in years," he said quietly. "Lily adores you, and I." He paused, choosing his words carefully. "I've come to depend on you too. You don't understand," she whispered. "I can't, I shouldn't." "Then help me understand." He took a step closer. "Something's hurting you, Naomi. I see it every time you get a phone call, every time Lily hugs you. What are you running from?" For a moment, he thought she might tell him. Her lips parted, her eyes searched his face, and he could almost feel the weight of her secret trying to break free. Then her phone rang. The sound seemed to snap her out of whatever spell had fallen over them. She pulled back, wiping her eyes. "I should check on Lily." "Naomi, wait." But she was already gone, leaving him alone with the splashing fountain and the scent of her vanilla perfume lingering in the air. The rest of the morning passed in a blur of tension. Ethan canceled his meetings, unable to focus on anything but the way Naomi's hands trembled as she helped Lily pack her school bag, the forced brightness in her voice as she promised to think about career day. Around noon, his intercom buzzed. His assistant's voice came through, crisp and professional. "Mr. Bennett, there's a Miss S. Brooks here to see you. She says it's about Naomi." Ethan's heart stopped. "Send her up." The woman who entered his office was in her 60s, with Naomi's same warm brown eyes and an air of quiet dignity despite her obvious distress. She carried a sleeping toddler on her hip, a beautiful boy, with curls like Naomi's. "Mr. Bennett," she said without preamble, "I'm sorry to come unannounced, but I didn't know what else to do. Miles's fever won't break, and Naomi needs to know." "Miles?" Ethan interrupted, his world tilting on its axis as he stared at the child. "My grandson," Miss S. Brooks said softly. "She didn't tell you about him, did she?" Ethan sank into his chair, pieces falling into place with devastating clarity. The phone calls, the tears, the way Naomi sometimes stared into space with such longing it hurt to watch. "Why?" he managed. Miss S. Brooks adjusted the sleeping boy on her hip. She needed this job. Mr. Bennett needed the live-in position to save money. But she knew most employers wouldn't hire a single mother, especially not after. She trailed off, looking uncertain. After what? After his father abandoned them, left them with nothing but debt and broken promises. Naomi's been working so hard to give Miles a better life, but it's killing her to be away from him. And now that he's sick, Ethan stood abruptly. "Where is she now?" "In the kitchen, I think. I saw her car in the driveway." "Stay here," he said, already moving toward the door. "Please." He found Naomi in the kitchen, preparing lunch with mechanical movements. She looked up when he entered, and he saw the exact moment she registered his expression. "You know," she breathed. "Your mother's in my office," he said quietly, with Miles. The knife she was holding clattered to the counter. "No," she whispered. "No, no, no. He's sick, Naomi. He needs you." She crumpled then, a sob tearing from her throat. "I'm so sorry. I never meant to lie to you. I needed this job, needed to give him a better life, but I couldn't bear to be away from him. And then Lily needed me too. And you," she broke off, pressing her hands to her face. "I'll leave. Just please stop." Ethan crossed the kitchen in 3 strides, pulling her hands away from her face. "Look at me." She raised her tear-stained face to his, and all his carefully constructed walls crumbled. "I don't care that you have a son," he said fiercely. "I care that you've been carrying this pain alone, that you felt you couldn't trust me with the truth." "How can you say that?" she whispered. "I lied to you. I'm just the help. And I dared to." She gestured helplessly at the kitchen, at all the moments they'd shared here. "You're not just anything," Ethan said. His hands came up to frame her face, thumbs brushing away her tears. "You're the woman who brought my daughter back to life, who makes this house feel like a home again, who makes me want things I thought I'd never want again." Naomi's breath hitched. "Ethan, let me help," he murmured. "Let me be there for you, the way you've been there for us." For a long moment, she just stared at him, searching his face for any sign of deception. Then, slowly, she nodded. "I need to see my son," she whispered. "Then let's go see him together." He took her hand, and together they walked toward his office, toward the truth, toward whatever came next. Neither of them knew what the future held, but for the first time, they wouldn't face it alone. Behind them, the kitchen stood silent, witness to another wall coming down, another step toward healing. And somewhere above, Lily's paper cranes watched over it all, counting down to the moment when wishes might finally come true. The guest room transformed overnight. Ethan had his staff bring in a toddler bed, complete with rocket ship bedding and a mobile of stars and planets. A small sound machine played gentle ocean waves, and a nightlight cast soft patterns on the wall. In the corner, a rocking chair waited, ready for midnight comfort sessions. Naomi stood in the doorway, one hand pressed to her mouth, the other holding Miles as he slept against her shoulder. The fever had finally broken, but she couldn't bring herself to put him down 2 months apart. Felt like an eternity. "Is it too much?" Ethan asked softly, coming up behind her. "I can have them change anything that's not right." She shook her head, unable to speak. How could she explain what this meant? This room wasn't just furniture and decorations. It was acceptance, understanding, a bridge between her 2 worlds. "You didn't have to do all this," she finally managed. "Yes, I did." His voice was firm but gentle. "This is your home now, both of you." Home. The word echoed in her chest, filling empty spaces she hadn't known existed. But doubt crept in, persistent as a shadow. What about your board members, the social circles you move in? Having your housekeeper's illegitimate child living here? Stop. Ethan moved to stand in front of her, his expression intense. First, you're more than just a housekeeper, you're family. And second, he reached out, gently touching Miles's curls. This little boy is not illegitimate. He's a child who deserves love and stability, just like Lily. At the sound of her name, Lily appeared in the hallway, clutching her favorite stuffed elephant. She'd been unusually quiet since meeting Miles, and Naomi had been worried about her reaction. "Can I come in?" she asked hesitantly. "Of course, sweetheart." Naomi knelt down, still holding Miles. "Would you like to see his room?" Lily stepped inside, her eyes wide as she took in the space. "It looks like outer space," she said softly, "like my astronomy books." "Your daddy picked everything out," Naomi told her. "He thought Miles might like stars as much as you do." Lily moved closer, studying the sleeping toddler. Is he going to be my brother now? The question hung in the air, loaded with implications. Naomi looked up at Ethan, panic fluttering in her chest. How were they supposed to explain this complicated situation to a 6-year-old? But Ethan, as always, knew exactly what to say. He knelt down beside them, creating a small circle of intimacy. "What do you think about that idea?" he asked Lily gently. Lily chewed her lip, considering. Would he want to look at my telescope with me? And would he like my paper cranes? And, she hesitated, would Miss Naomi still have time to make cookies with me? "Oh, honey." Naomi reached out with her free arm, pulling Lily close. "I will always have time for you, always. Promise?" Lily's voice was small. "I promise." This time, Naomi made the vow without fear. "And you know what? Miles loves cookies too. Maybe we could all make them together." Lily brightened. "Can we make some now, for when he wakes up?" Ethan chuckled. "It's almost bedtime, princess, but maybe tomorrow." "Actually," Naomi said, an idea forming. "What if we all had breakfast together in the morning? I could make those special pancakes you like. Lily, the ones with faces, with blueberry eyes." Lily bounced excitedly, then caught herself, glancing at the sleeping Miles. "Sorry," she whispered. "It's okay," Naomi smiled. "He sleeps like a rock, just like his mama." "Like you did during the thunderstorm?" Ethan asked, his eyes twinkling. "Because I distinctly remember someone jumping at every lightning flash." "I was not jumping," Naomi protested, but she was smiling too. "I was being vigilant." "Very vigilant," he agreed solemnly. But his hand found hers and squeezed gently. The moment was interrupted by Miles stirring, his little face scrunching up as he woke. He blinked owlishly at the unfamiliar room, then saw Lily. "Hi," he said shyly, tucking his face into Naomi's neck. "Hi," Lily replied, equally shy. Then, gathering her courage, she held out her elephant. "This is Mr. Trunks. He's really good at making people feel better when they're sick." Miles peeked out, interested. "Really?" "Uh-huh. He has magic in his trunk." "Want to see?" Naomi felt tears pricking her eyes as she watched Lily demonstrate Mr. Trunks's magic, a simple squeeze of the trunk that made his ears wiggle. Miles's delighted giggle filled the room, and just like that, a connection was formed. "Mama," Miles asked, pointing at the rocket ship bed. "Stars? That's your new bed, baby," Naomi told him. "Do you like it?" He nodded enthusiastically. "Like Lily's book. You saw my astronomy book?" Lily asked, surprised. "He loves the pictures," Naomi explained. "When I would video chat with him, he always wanted me to show him the pages about Saturn." "That's my favorite planet too," Lily exclaimed. "Daddy, can I get my book to show Miles?" Ethan glanced at his watch. One chapter, then bedtime for everyone. "Deal, deal." Lily ran off to fetch her book. "You're amazing with them," Naomi said softly when she was gone. "Most men would be overwhelmed by all this." "Most men haven't had you showing them what real strength looks like," he replied, his voice equally soft. "Besides, look at them, how could anyone not want this?" As if on cue, Lily returned with her book. Soon, they were all settled in the rocking chair, somehow managing to fit, despite it being made for one with Lily, perched on Ethan's knee, and Miles in Naomi's lap. The book spread across all of them. "Saturn's rings are made of ice and rock," Lily read carefully, pointing to each word. "They stretch as wide as—" Naomi let the words wash over her, taking in the scene. Her son, healthy and happy in her arms. Lily proudly sharing her knowledge, Ethan, solid and warm beside her, his arms stretched along the back of the chair, fingers occasionally brushing her shoulder. It wasn't perfect. There would be questions to answer, adjustments to make, challenges to face. The world outside this room might not understand or approve of their unconventional family. But as Miles's weight grew heavier in her arms and Lily's voice grew sleepier, Naomi realized something important. Perfect wasn't what they needed. They just needed each other. "I think it's bedtime," Ethan whispered as both children's eyes began to droop. Together, they tucked Lily into her bed down the hall, then returned to settle Miles in his new room. The little boy went easily, worn out from his illness and the excitement of the day. Standing in the doorway, watching the star patterns dance across the ceiling, Naomi felt Ethan's presence behind her. "Stay," he said quietly. "Not as the housekeeper, not as an employee. Stay because we want you here. Both of you." She turned to face him, finding nothing but sincerity in his eyes. "Are you sure? This changes everything." "Everything already changed the moment you walked into our lives," he said, reaching up to tuck a strand of hair behind her ear. "We just didn't know it yet." In the soft glow of the nightlight, surrounded by the gentle sound of waves and the quiet breathing of her son, Naomi made her choice. She leaned forward, resting her forehead against Ethan's chest, and felt his arms come around her. "Okay," she whispered, "we'll stay." Above them, Lily's paper cranes watched over their growing family, counting down to wishes that were already coming true. The annual Atlanta Business Leadership Gala was in full swing at the Street Regis Hotel. Crystal chandeliers cast a warm glow over the crowd of Atlanta's elite, their jewelry sparkling like stars against the night sky. Ethan adjusted his bow tie, scanning the room with practiced ease. This was his world, a world of power handshakes and million-dollar deals sealed over champagne, but tonight felt different. Mr. Bennett, Charles Thornton, chairman of the board, approached with his wife in tow. "We missed you at the last 2 dinner parties." "Been busy with domestic matters, I hear." The pause was slight but deliberate. Ethan felt his jaw tighten. News traveled fast in their circles, and the sight of Naomi and Miles at the private school drop-off had sparked plenty of gossip. "Very busy," he replied smoothly, "and very happy." Mrs. Thornton's perfectly lined lips curved into a practiced smile. "It's so charitable of you, taking in your housekeeper's child, though some might question the appropriateness." "Some might question a lot of things, Eleanor," Ethan cut in, his voice pleasant but firm, like why the Thornton Foundation's overseas investments don't match their reported charitable giving. The couple's smiles froze. With a murmured excuse, they moved away, leaving Ethan alone with his untouched champagne. His phone buzzed a text from Naomi, with a photo attached. Lily and Miles were curled up on the library sofa, surrounded by books, both fast asleep. The caption read, "Our little astronomers crashed after their 3rd reading of the solar system." Something in his chest loosened at the sight. He was typing a response when another voice interrupted. "They're calling her your live-in mistress, you know." Ethan looked up to find Sophia's sister, Rachel, watching him with concern. Of all his late wife's family, she was the only one who still maintained regular contact. "Hello, Rachel." "Ethan." She touched his arm gently. "I'm not judging. God knows Sophia would have wanted you and Lily to be happy, but people are talking. Let them talk. It's not that simple." Rachel glanced around before lowering her voice. "The board members, the investors, they're traditional, old money. They see you moving your housekeeper and her illegitimate child into your home, and they wonder about your judgment." "My judgment?" Ethan felt anger rising. "My judgment is that 2 children deserve love and stability. My judgment is that Naomi Brooks has brought more joy into our lives in a few months than we've had in years. And your feelings for her have nothing to do with it?" Ethan met his sister-in-law's gaze steadily. "My feelings for her have everything to do with it." Rachel studied him for a long moment, then sighed. "You always were stubborn." She squeezed his arm. "Just be careful. Not everyone will understand." As if to prove her point, whispers followed Ethan throughout the evening. He caught fragments of conversations, saw the sidelong glances and raised eyebrows. By the time he made his excuses and left, his shoulders were tight with tension. The drive home took him through Atlanta's quieter neighborhoods, past houses where normal families lived normal lives without scrutiny. But as he pulled up to his own gates, he couldn't bring himself to regret any of his choices. The mansion was mostly dark, but warm light spilled from the kitchen windows. He found Naomi there, wearing yoga pants and one of his old Harvard t-shirts, making hot chocolate. "The kids finally went down?" he asked. loosening his bow tie. She turned, and the sight of her comfortable, at home, beautiful, without trying made his heart skip. After 3 bedtime stories and 2 glasses of water each, she smiled, then noticed his expression. "That bad, huh? Nothing I can't handle." He moved closer, accepting the mug she offered. "Though apparently you're my live-in mistress now." Naomi's hand trembled slightly as she set down her own mug. "Ethan, if this is too much, don't." He set his mug down and pulled her close. "Don't let them make you doubt this. But your reputation, your business, can survive a few whispers." He touched her cheek gently. "What they can't survive is losing you, either of you." She leaned into his touch, but he could still see worry in her eyes. "I heard Lily's teacher asking her questions today about our living arrangement. She looked at me like I was taking advantage, using my son to trap you, or something equally horrible." Naomi pulled away, wrapping her arms around herself. "Maybe we should move back to the garage apartment. Keep some distance, at least in public." "No." Ethan's voice was firm. "We're not hiding. We're not ashamed. But do you know what Lily told her teacher?" He stepped closer again, unwilling to let her retreat. "She said her family was special because it had double the love. That's how our daughter sees us, Naomi. That's what matters." Tears welled in her eyes. "Our daughter? Yes." He wiped away a tear that escaped. "Our daughter, our son, our family. The rest of the world can adjust or not. I don't care." A sound from the doorway made them both turn. Lily stood there in her unicorn pajamas, holding Miles's hand. The little boy was clutching Mr. Trunks, his eyes sleepy. "Bad dream," Lily explained. "Miles wanted his mama, and I said I'd help him find you." Naomi immediately moved to scoop up her son, but Ethan caught her arm gently. "Hey, kids," he said softly. "How about some hot chocolate and a story in the family room, just this once?" Lily's face lit up. "Can we make a fort? I don't see why not." Ethan was already removing his suit jacket. "Naomi?" She looked at him still in his formal wear, ready to build blanket forts and drink hot chocolate at midnight, and felt love surge through her chest. "Fort time it is," she agreed, lifting Miles. But first, group hug. They came together naturally, 4 pieces of a puzzle finding their fit. Miles's sleepy weight, Lily's excited bouncing, Ethan's solid presence. It felt right in a way that defied explanation. Later, as they all curled up in their makeshift fort, the children drifting off between them, Ethan caught Naomi's hand in the dim light. "This is worth fighting for," he whispered. She squeezed his hand, thinking of all the obstacles ahead, the judgments, the whispers, the disapproving glances, but looking at their sleeping children, at the man who had opened his heart to her son, she knew her answer. "Yes," she whispered back. "It is." Above them, through a gap in the blankets, they could see Lily's paper cranes hanging from the ceiling, 312 now, each one a step closer to their 1,000th crane wish. But watching her family sleep peacefully in their cocoon of blankets and love, Naomi wondered if some wishes didn't need 1,000 cranes to come true. They just needed courage, love, and the strength to face the world together. The letter arrived on expensive cream-colored stationery, hand-delivered to Ethan's office. The return address belonged to one of Atlanta's most prestigious law firms, but it was the name at the bottom that made his blood run cold. William Grayson, Sophia's father. "Sir?" His assistant hovered in the doorway. "Mrs. Brooks is on line 1, something about Lily's career day presentation." Ethan glanced at his watch. Right, today was the day Naomi would speak to Lily's class. They'd spent weeks preparing, turning their story into something a room full of first graders could understand. Family, love, acceptance. "Tell her I'll call back in 5 minutes." Alone in his office, Ethan unfolded the letter. As he read, his grip on the paper tightened until his knuckles turned white. Across town, Naomi stood before 20 wide-eyed first graders, including an especially proud Lily. She'd chosen to wear her favorite yellow dress, the one that made her feel confident, despite the whispers from some of the other parents at the back of the room. "Being a homemaker isn't just about keeping a house clean," she explained, showing pictures of the garden they'd planted together, the science experiments they did in the kitchen, the astronomical charts decorating their walls. "It's about creating a space where everyone feels safe to grow and learn, like our paper cranes. We're making 1,000 of them," Lily chimed in. "That's right, sweetie." Naomi smiled. "And what happens when we finish? We get to make a wish, and I'm going to wish for—" The classroom door opened abruptly. Ethan stood there, his face tight with tension. "Naomi, we need to go now," "But Daddy, she's not finished. It's an emergency." Something in his voice made Naomi's heart stop. She quickly thanked the teacher and gathered their things, following Ethan out while whispers erupted behind them. In the car, he handed her the letter wordlessly. As she read, her hands began to shake. "He's suing for custody of Lily?" Her voice cracked. "On what grounds? Moral turpitude, unsuitable living environment, exposure to inappropriate relationships." Ethan's knuckles were white on the steering wheel. "He claims I'm unfit because I've allowed my domestic employee to usurp his daughter's maternal role." Tears burned in Naomi's eyes. "This is my fault. If I hadn't moved in, if I hadn't gotten so close to Lily." "Stop." Ethan pulled into their driveway, turning to face her. "This isn't your fault. William never approved of me, even when Sophia was alive. He thought his daughter married beneath her by choosing someone who earned his money instead of inheriting it. This is just his latest attempt to control what's left of Sophia's legacy. But he might win. He has money, influence. So do I." Ethan took her hand. "And I have something he doesn't. A real family worth fighting for." Inside, they found Lily and Miles in the kitchen with Mrs. Brooks, who'd been watching Miles during career day. The children were decorating cookies, their faces dusted with flour and happiness. "Look what we made." Miles held up a lopsided cookie. "It's Saturn, more like Jupiter," Lily corrected gently. "Saturn has rings, remember?" Watching them so innocent, so perfectly comfortable with each other, Naomi felt fear squeeze her heart. How could anyone want to tear this apart? "We need to talk," Ethan said quietly to Miss S. Brooks. "Could you take the kids upstairs?" Once they were alone, Ethan pulled out his phone. "I'm calling my lawyers. We'll fight this, Naomi." Naomi touched his arm. Maybe we should give him what he wants." "If I move out?" "No." His voice was steel. "Running won't solve anything. It'll just prove him right, make it look like we have something to hide. But we don't know what he might dig up about Miles's father, about my past." "I don't care about your past." Ethan pulled her close. "I care about our future, all of us, together." The sound of footsteps made them turn. Lily stood in the doorway, clutching her latest paper crane. "Are we in trouble?" she asked in a small voice. "Is it because of career day?" "No, baby." Naomi knelt down. "Why would you think that?" "Because Tommy's mom said you shouldn't be there. She said you're not my real mom, and it's wrong to pretend." Naomi felt like she'd been slapped. Before she could respond, Ethan knelt beside them. "Lily, do you remember what Mommy used to say about family?" Lily nodded. "That it's made of love, not just blood." "Exactly. And our family has so much love, doesn't it? With you and me and Naomi and Miles, and Mr. Trunks," Lily added seriously. "And Mr. Trunks," Ethan agreed, managing a smile. "Some people might not understand our family, but that doesn't make it any less real. Like my paper cranes." Lily held up her latest creation. "Tommy said they're just paper, but I know they're magic because they're made with love." Naomi pulled the little girl close, tears spilling over. "That's right, sweetheart. Love is the strongest magic there is." Upstairs, they could hear Miles singing his ABCs with Miss S. Brooks. The afternoon sun streamed through the windows, catching the hundreds of paper cranes that now decorated their home, each one representing a moment of hope, of patience, of family. Ethan's phone buzzed his lawyers, ready to fight, but for a moment, he just held his family, memorizing the feeling of their strength together. "Whatever happens," he whispered, "we face it as a family." Naomi nodded against his shoulder, one arm around Lily, her other hand reaching for his. They had built something precious here, something worth protecting. And if Sophia's father wanted a fight, he would learn what real family loyalty meant. Because paper cranes weren't the only kind of magic in their home. There was magic in the way Miles and Lily shared secrets and stories. Magic in the quiet moments when they all piled onto the couch for movie nights. Magic in the simple truth that love doesn't follow rules or respect social boundaries. It just is, pure and powerful and worth any battle. 547, Lily mumbled against Naomi's dress. "What's that, sweetheart?" "That's how many cranes we have now. We're more than halfway to our wish." Ethan and Naomi exchanged glances over her head. Maybe they didn't need to wait for 1,000 cranes. Maybe their real wish was already here, not in the granting, but in the making, in the daily choice to love, to stay, to fight for what mattered. The sound of the doorbell made them all jump. Through the front window, they could see an expensive car, in the driveway William Grayson's Bentley. "I'll handle this," Ethan said, straightening his tie. "No, Naomi stood, squaring her shoulders. We'll handle it together as a family. Lily slipped her small hand into Naomi's. Can I show Grandpa my cranes? Maybe if he sees how pretty they are, he'll understand about magic. Oh, sweetheart. Naomi knelt down again, smoothing Lily's curls. Sometimes grown-ups have a hard time believing in magic, but that doesn't mean we stop believing, right? Right. Lily's chin lifted determinedly. Because we're special. We have double the love. The doorbell rang again, more insistent this time, but standing there in their kitchen, surrounded by the evidence of their life together. Cookies cooling on racks, artwork on the fridge, paper cranes catching the light they felt stronger than any storm that might be brewing. Because love, real love, doesn't bow to legal threats or social pressure. It stands its ground, transforms lives, and creates families from the most unexpected ingredients. And sometimes, just sometimes, it makes wishes come true long before the 1,000th crane takes flight. William Grayson stood in the Bennett mansion's living room, like an emperor surveying conquered territory. His tailored suit and patrician bearing spoke of old money, of country clubs and boardrooms where deals were made with handshakes and threats were delivered with smiles. This can all be very simple, Ethan, he said, swirling the scotch he'd poured himself uninvited. Send the help and her bastard child back where they belong. Return to an appropriate lifestyle. I'll withdraw the custody suit, and Lily can continue having a relationship with both of us. Ethan felt Naomi tense beside him, but kept his voice steady. The help has a name, William, and her son is part of this family now. Family? William's laugh was cold. You're living in sin with the maid, exposing my granddaughter to God knows what kind of influence. What would Sophia say? Sophia, Ethan said quietly, would be grateful that her daughter is loved and happy. Happy? William set down his glass hard enough to slosh liquid over the side. She's confused, living in this circus. A proper young lady needs structure, tradition, not some cobbled-together arrangement with strangers. We're not strangers, Naomi spoke up, her voice firm despite her trembling hands. We're the people who make her breakfast every morning, who help with her homework, who know that she still sleeps with her mom's old sweater when she's scared, and that she wants to be an astronaut and a baker at the same time. William turned to her, his expression glacial. You presume too much, Miss Brooks getting ideas above your station. Did you think you could just slide into my daughter's place? Use your child to cement your position here. That's enough. Ethan stepped forward, but Naomi caught his arm. No, let him speak, she said. I want to hear exactly what he thinks of me, of us. What I think? William's eyes narrowed. I think you're an opportunist who got lucky, found a wealthy widower, used his guilt and loneliness to worm your way in. But you forgot something crucial. Lily has a real family, a grandmother who misses her terribly, cousins her own age. A legacy to uphold. A legacy of what? Naomi challenged. Of judgment? Of looking down on anyone who doesn't fit your narrow view of family? How dare you? No, how dare you? Naomi's voice rose slightly. You come into our home, threaten to tear apart a little girl's world, all because you can't accept that love doesn't follow your rules. The sound of small feet on the stairs made them all turn. Lily stood there in her astronomy pajamas, Miles hiding behind her legs. Why are you yelling at Miss Naomi? She demanded, staring at her grandfather. She's my family too. William's expression softened slightly. Lily, darling, come here. We need to talk about some changes that, number. Lily's chin jutted out stubbornly. You're being mean. Mommy said mean people don't get cookies or hugs. Lily, Ethan started, but she wasn't finished. And Mommy also said that love is like the stars. There's always room for more. That's why she bought me my telescope, remember? To see how big the universe is. She turned to William. You don't want me to have more love, Grandpa, like the stars. The room fell silent. William stared at his granddaughter, something shifting in his expression. Sophia said that? He asked softly. About the stars? Uh-huh. And Miss Naomi helps me use the telescope now. She knows all the constellations, just like Mommy did, and she makes hot chocolate with marshmallow moons. And she never gets mad when I ask too many questions. Miles peered around Lily's legs. Stars are pretty, he offered shyly. Lily reached back to pat his head. This is my brother now. He's little, but he's learning about Saturn's rings. Want to see our models? William's hands clenched at his sides. Lily, this isn't about, yes, it is. She grabbed Miles's hand and marched forward. Come see our cranes, too. We're making 1,000 for magic. Before anyone could stop her, she was pulling both Miles and her grandfather toward the study, where hundreds of paper cranes hung from the ceiling in a rainbow array. "See?" She pointed up. "Each one is a wish for love and happiness and family. That's what Mommy would want, right? More wishes, more love." William stood still, surrounded by paper birds and childhood dreams. For a moment, the mask of aristocratic disdain slipped, revealing something raw underneath. "Sophia loved origami," he said quietly. "She used to fold little boats for you when you were a baby." "I know." Lily tugged his sleeve. "Miss Naomi found pictures in Mommy's old albums. She helped me make boats too. See?" She pointed to a shelf where tiny paper boats sat beside framed photos. Sophia holding baby Lily, Ethan reading to her, and now new ones, Naomi teaching her to bake, Miles sharing his toys, all of them together at the park. William picked up one of the photos, his hands not quite steady. "You look happy." "I am happy, Grandpa. We all are. Even when we're sad about Mommy, we can still be happy too. Miss Naomi says that's what love does, makes room for everything." Ethan and Naomi stood in the doorway, watching the scene unfold. His arm slipped around her waist, pulling her close. "Out of the mouths of babes," he whispered. William set down the photo carefully. "These cranes, they're very well made. Miss Naomi teaches us patience," Lily explained. "And precision. That's a big word, right?" "Very big." William's voice was rough. "Your mother, she would have appreciated that, the patience part. She always said, I rush things too much." "Then don't rush now," Lily said with 6-year-old logic. "Stay for cookies, watch the stars with us, see how nice our family is." William looked at his granddaughter, really looked at her perhaps for the first time, seeing not just Sophia's child, but a person in her own right, a person who was thriving. I should go," he said finally, "and my lawyers will be expecting." "Call them," Ethan suggested quietly. "Tell them to stand down. Stay for dinner. Meet your grandson." "Grandson?" William's head snapped up. "That's what families do, right?" Naomi spoke softly. "They grow, they change, they make room for more love." For a long moment, William stood frozen. Then Miles toddled over to him, holding up a slightly crushed paper crane. "For you," he said solemnly. "Magic." William took the crane with hands that trembled slightly. "Thank you, young man." "His name's Miles," Lily supplied helpfully. "He's very good at puzzles." Something in William's face cracked, then not breaking, but softening, like ice in spring revealing the water beneath. Perhaps I could stay, just for a little while." Lily beamed. "I'll get Mr. Trunks. He loves meeting new family." As she ran off, pulling Miles with her, William turned to Ethan and Naomi. "This doesn't mean I approve," he said stiffly. But Sophia always said I was too quick to judge, too set in my ways," he continued. "That's all we're asking for," Ethan replied. "Time. A chance to show you what we already know. That family," Naomi added softly, "is more than blood and tradition, it's choice. It's love. It's making room for magic, even when it comes in unexpected packages." Above them, paper cranes danced in the evening breeze from the open window, each one a wish, a prayer, a step toward understanding. And if William Grayson's eyes were a bit damp as he watched his grandchildren return with cookies and stuffed elephants and stars in their eyes, well, maybe that was a kind of magic too, the kind that transforms hearts, one paper crane at a time. 2 weeks after William Grayson's unexpected visit, change swept through the Bennett mansion like a gentle spring breeze. The custody lawsuit was withdrawn with a formal apology. Whispers at the country club turned from scandal to curiosity, and on a warm Sunday morning, the family gathered in the garden for a very special occasion. 998. Lily counted carefully, adding another crane to their collection. It's only 2 more to go. The garden had been transformed. Paper cranes of every color hung from the trees, catching sunlight like prisms. Tables dotted the lawn, each one set with elegant simplicity white linens, fresh flowers, and, at the center of each, a carefully crafted paper crane. "Are you sure about this?" Naomi asked Ethan for the 100th time, adjusting the simple white sundress she wore. Having the engagement party here, with everyone, Ethan caught her hand, kissing her palm. "I'm sure about us. The rest is just details." From across the garden, William Grayson watched them with an expression that had softened considerably since that night among the paper cranes. He sat with Miles on his lap, teaching the toddler how to fold a simple boat. "Like this, Grandpa?" Miles asked, his little face scrunched in concentration. "Perfect, young man," William praised. and the title no longer held any irony. "You have your mother's artistic touch." Mrs. Brooks wiped tears from her eyes as she arranged pastries on a nearby table. "Never thought I'd see the day," she murmured to Rachel, who was helping her. "My baby girl getting engaged to a man like Ethan." "Love has its own logic," Rachel replied, watching Lily direct the caterers with all the authority of a tiny event planner. "Sophia would have approved, you know. She always said Ethan deserved a second chance at happiness." The guest list was smaller than Atlanta society might have expected, just family and close friends who had supported their unconventional journey. No board members wringing their hands about propriety, no social climbers seeking gossip, just people who understood that love writes its own rules. "Daddy," Lily called out. "Can we do the last 2 cranes now, before everyone comes?" Ethan checked his watch. "We have time. Naomi?" They gathered around the library table. They'd moved to the garden. Ethan, Naomi, Lily, and Miles. William and the grandmothers watched from nearby, a united front of reformed skeptics. "The last one should be special," Lily declared. "One from me and Miles, and one from Daddy and Miss Naomi, almost Mommy." "Mommy," Miles corrected, using the term they'd settled on as their family grew closer. The simple phrase brought fresh tears to Naomi's eyes. Together, they folded the final cranes, one pure white, one deep blue like the night sky. As they added them to the collection, 1,000 paper birds caught the morning light, turning the garden into a kaleidoscope of color and hope. "Time to make our wish." Lily bounced excitedly. "But we already have everything we wished for," Naomi said softly, looking at her family. "Don't we?" Ethan squeezed her hand. "Almost everything." He stepped forward, and the garden fell silent. Even the birds seemed to pause their morning songs. "When Sophia died," he began, his voice carrying across the lawn, "I thought I'd never find this kind of happiness again. I built walls around my heart, around Lily's life, thinking I was protecting us. But love doesn't work that way. It finds the cracks, seeps through, makes flowers grow in the hardest places." He turned to Naomi, taking both her hands in his. "You and Miles didn't just enter our lives, you transformed them. You showed us that family isn't about replacing what was lost, but about growing something new, something just as beautiful." Naomi's vision blurred with tears as Ethan knelt before her. The ring he held caught the sunlight like a fallen star. "Lily's paper cranes taught us about patience, about believing in magic," he continued. 1,000 careful folds, 1,000 moments of hope. But the real magic wasn't in completing them, it was in the journey, in late-night cookie baking and early morning astronomy lessons, in healing hearts and building bridges, in finding home. "Home," Naomi whispered. "Exactly." Ethan's smile was radiant. "So, Naomi Brooks, surrounded by our family, our 1,000 paper wishes, and all the love that brought us here, will you marry me?" "Say yes," Lily stage whispered, making everyone laugh through their tears. "Yes," Naomi breathed. 1,000 times yes. As Ethan slipped the ring onto her finger, applause broke out across the garden. Lily and Miles rushed forward for a group hug, nearly knocking them over. William cleared his throat gruffly, suspiciously bright-eyed behind his usual stern expression. "Well done, Ethan," he said, clapping his former son-in-law's shoulder. "Sophia would be proud of all of us, I think." Mrs. Brooks pulled Naomi into a fierce embrace. "Your grandmother would have loved this. Baby girl, all these paper birds, all this joy." The morning progressed into afternoon, filled with laughter and tears and endless toasts. The garden filled with guests who came expecting a simple engagement party and found themselves witnesses to something rarer, the blending of families, the healing of old wounds, the triumph of love over prejudice. Lily and Miles ran between the tables, proud hosts to their expanded family, telling anyone who would listen about their paper cranes, about wishes and magic and hearts as big as the universe. As the sun began to set, casting long shadows through the paper birds, Ethan found Naomi by the fountain. She was watching their children, her engagement ring catching the last rays of daylight. "Having second thoughts?" he teased gently. "And what do you wish for now?" Naomi looked around at William teaching Miles another origami shape, at Miss S. Brooks and Rachel sharing family recipes, at Lily explaining constellations to her young cousins, at the 1,000 paper cranes watching over them all. "Nothing," she said softly. "Everything I could wish for is right here." Ethan kissed her then, soft and sweet, as their paper birds danced in the evening breeze. Above them, the first stars began to appear, countless points of light in an infinite sky. Proof that there's always room for more love, more family, more magic. Just like Lily had said all along. The wedding took place at twilight, in the same garden where paper cranes had first brought their wishes to life. Now, those 1,000 colorful birds hung among twinkling lights, creating a ceiling of dreams above the intimate gathering. The Atlanta sky painted itself in shades of purple and gold, and the first stars began to peek through, as if heaven itself wanted to witness this moment. Lily and Miles led the processional, the children's faces glowing with importance. Lily scattered rose petals with scientific precision, explaining to anyone who would listen that she'd calculated the exact number needed for optimal coverage. Miles followed with the rings, proudly wearing a miniature version of Ethan's tuxedo. When Naomi appeared at the garden path, Ethan felt his heart stop. She wore a simple gown that seemed to catch every bit of remaining sunlight, her natural curls crowned with tiny paper cranes that Lily had insisted on adding to her veil. But it was her smile radiant, sure, full of love that took his breath away. "Ready?" William Grayson asked softly, standing at her side. The gesture had surprised everyone, but as he'd gruffly explained, every bride deserves a father figure to walk her down the aisle. The ceremony was brief, but meaningful. They'd written their own vows, weaving their story of paper cranes and midnight cookies, of astronomy lessons and healing hearts, of two broken families becoming something whole and beautiful. "I promise," Ethan said, his voice carrying across the hushed garden, "to love not just with my heart, but with my soul, to see magic in ordinary moments, to build dreams from paper and starlight, to be the kind of father both our children deserve." Naomi's eyes shimmered with tears as she responded, "I promise to believe in wishes, to trust in second chances, to fill our home with laughter and love, to remember that family isn't about where we came from, but where we choose to go together." "And we promise too," Lily chimed in, making everyone laugh. She grabbed Miles's hand, pulling him forward. "We promise to be the best brother and sister ever, and to always believe in magic, and to never stop making paper cranes." The minister smiled indulgently. "I don't believe that's in the traditional ceremony, but I think we can make an exception." As Ethan and Naomi exchanged rings, the garden lights twinkled overhead like earthbound stars, mixing with the paper cranes in a dance of light and shadow. The moment felt suspended in time, perfect, precious, eternal. "By the power vested in me," the minister proclaimed, "I now pronounce you husband and wife. You may kiss the bride." Their kiss was sweet and tender, full of promises and dreams. Around them, paper cranes swayed in the evening breeze, witnesses to this culmination of 1,000 wishes. The reception that followed was a celebration of everything their unique family had become. Tables were set with elegant simplicity, each centerpiece featuring a family photo surrounded by carefully folded paper cranes. The cake, a masterpiece of white and gold, was decorated with sugarcraft cranes that matched the ones hanging above. Miss S. Brooks dabbed at her eyes as she watched Miles attempt to teach William a complicated handshake. "Look at my grandson," she whispered to Rachel. "Who would have thought he'd end up with a family like this?" Rachel smiled, watching Lily explain the constellations to her young cousins using paper cranes to map out the stars. "Love has its own wisdom," she said softly. "Sophia would have loved all of this." Later, as music filled the garden, Ethan held Naomi close during their first dance. Above them, paper cranes caught the light of 1,000 tiny bulbs, creating patterns like constellation maps across their faces. "Happy?" he murmured against her hair. "Beyond words," she replied, then laughed as Lily and Miles crashed into their dance, demanding to be included. Ethan lifted Lily while Naomi scooped up Miles, and they swayed together as a family, their shadows merging into one on the garden path. "You know what this means?" Lily asked excitedly. "Now we get to make 1,000 more cranes for new wishes." "But sweetheart," Naomi smiled, "what else could we possibly wish for?" Lily's face grew serious. "Well, maybe a baby sister one who likes astronomy and baking like us." Ethan and Naomi exchanged startled glances, then burst out laughing. "One miracle at a time, princess," Ethan said, but his eyes held a promise when they met Naomi's. The party continued into the night, but eventually, the newlyweds found a quiet moment by the fountain. The paper cranes above them cast moving shadows on the water, like dreams taking flight. "Do you remember," Ethan asked, "that first day I came home and found you by the pool with Lily. How could I forget? I thought I was going to be fired. Instead, you fired up my heart." He touched her cheek gently. "Taught me that love doesn't end with loss, it just changes shape and, like your paper cranes, becomes something new and beautiful." "We all taught each other," Naomi said softly. Lily with her endless belief in magic, Miles with his open heart, even William learning to let go of the past. From across the garden came the sound of children's laughter. Lily was teaching her cousins how to fold simple cranes, while Miles offered very serious commentary on their technique. William and Miss S. Brooks sat nearby, united in grandparental pride. Our family, Ethan marveled, all of it the pain and the joy, the past and the future folded together like paper cranes. Naomi finished, smiling, each crease necessary, each fold bringing us closer to something magical. Above them, the real stars had emerged fully, now countless points of light in the velvet sky. They mingled with the paper cranes and garden lights until it was impossible to tell where earthly magic ended and celestial wonder began, just as it should be. Naomi thought, because love, real love, knows no boundaries. It expands like the universe, infinite and beautiful, making room for all the stories that led to this moment and all the stories yet to come. "Time to cut the cake," Lily called out, running toward them with Miles in tow, "and make new wishes." Ethan pulled Naomi close, pressing a kiss to her temple. "What do you say, Mrs. Bennet? Ready for 1,000 more wishes?" Naomi looked at their children, their family, their paper crane dreams come true. "With you, always." And as they walked back to their celebration hand in hand, the paper cranes seemed to glow a little brighter, as if acknowledging that some wishes don't need magic to come true, they just need love, courage, and hearts big enough to hold all the stars in the sky. The end. Based on the emotional depth of our story, here's an engaging question for the audience. If you had to fold 1,000 paper cranes and make one wish like Lily, what would you wish for? A wish for love, like Ethan and Naomi found? A wish for family healing, like they achieved? Or a wish for courage to face life's challenges? Each crane represents a step toward your dream. Just like in our story, what journey would you choose to take? Think about it. Sometimes our deepest wishes aren't just about what we want, but about the person we become while working toward them. Lily and her family learned this through their paper cranes. What would your 1,000 crane journey teach you?